Now, we're going to get kicked off with a key subject, which is, of course, what's happening around President Trump and Ukraine. Take us away, Pat.
Well, the big rift, Brian, has opened up, as you've heard and everybody's heard. Trump's going in a different direction in Europe on Ukraine. It's created all sorts of problems. This is how the Washington Post is translating this. 3 years after Russia's invasion, Ukraine has to battle Trump. So this is the head columnist here from the Washington Post, Ishad Thaor. And so we're just going to give it a tear emoji because there are lots of tears right now in the neoliberal and neoconservative camps on this. And the thing that they're afraid of, Brian, I think, is this. They're afraid that this might be breaking out. It's something they call détente or rapprochement. And what does that mean? Well, at the moment, we'll just call this the adult table. We'll get to the other tables later. We'll call this the adults table. This is power politics. U.S., Donald Trump, the new administration believe that they should be talking directly with Moscow. And this has everybody completely up in arms, including the British contingent as well, led by Keir Starmer. So here's Trump basically taking a hard swipe at the president of Ukraine. Let's roll this.
But today I heard, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down. But they chose not to do it that way. And President Biden, in all fairness, he doesn't have a clue. What he was so bad for this. He was so bad, so pathetic. It's so sad.
It's pretty tough words from Trump there.
Yeah, he's not pulling any punches. And this is what's really upsetting people, Brian, is that the narrative is absolutely collapsing and Trump's basically taking a wrecking ball to the whole enterprise here. And we'll go on here. He released this tweet on TruthSocial and just laid into Zelensky, and this has been devastating, I think, for a lot of Ukraine supporters. Trump wrote that Zelensky was a modestly successful comedian and accused him of having talked the U.S. into a war that couldn't be won. I mean, this is really flipping the script from what we are used to hearing for the last 3 years. And he continues here, and it gets a little bit more hardcore. Trump said Zelensky is playing Biden like a fiddle and called him a dictator without elections. Zelensky, of course, he's referring to there. So he's saying all this stuff out loud that we've been talking about on this program for the last 3 years. And Trump's finally vocalizing this. And I think it's created a real shock right across the establishment and the media as well. And they're scrambling of how they're going to manage the narrative going forward here. And so here's the latest so he's basically giving Zelensky an ultimatum. He says, you better move fast or you might lose Ukraine. What he's saying is what we've said on this program, Brian, is that the longer they drag this charade out, the smaller Ukraine's going to end up being. The less territory they're going to have, the more people that are going to die.
Absolutely.
So, and the counter punch came from Zelensky here. So let's call that the warning shot. And this was Zelensky's reply. He basically accused Trump of living in a disinformation bubble. So he's clearly been talking to the UK contingent on the phone. Said, don't accept Trump's disinformation bubble. Hit back, Vladimir. And basically, he's upset that Trump's saying that Ukraine basically started the war. In truth, Brian, NATO and the U.S. Created the pretext to start this conflict. Zelensky and Poroshenko just went along for the ride. So this has got J.D. Vance, the president's deputy, as well as Donald talking about this, and Trump's not very happy. So Vance has laid in with a warning shot here to Zelensky. J.D. Vance tells Zelensky he will regret badmouthing Trump and condemns his atrocities in response to peace talks. So his atrocious response to peace talks. So this is going to shape up to be quite interesting. I think, Brian, they're one insult away from. This is The Art of the Insult. It's Donald Trump's old DVD. When the nickname comes for Zelensky, it'll be, like you did with Marco Rubio, Little Marco or Sleepy Joe. When the nickname arrives, that's basically the
end. That's the end.
For Zelensky. The brand is pummeled and finished at that point. So I think they're all bracing themselves for impact there. So right now you've got a lot of attacks coming in the U.S. The U.S. is very split on this issue. Here's Bernie Sanders. He's the sort of, I guess, the far left, if you will, the Democratic Party. He's an independent, but he's really with the Democrats. But this is what he is saying here. They're sticking to their line. Let's go ahead and listen to this.
It will not surprise you when I tell you that Trump is lying, as he so often does. Yesterday, Trump said that Ukraine started the war. That's not true. Russia invaded Ukraine twice, first in 2014, and then again in 2022. Right now, Russia occupies about 20% of Ukraine. Since Putin's horrific invasion, over 1 million people have been killed or injured. Every single day, Russia continues to rain down hundreds of missiles and drones on Ukrainian cities. Putin's forces have massacred civilians and kidnapped thousands of Ukrainian children, bringing them back to Russian re-education camps. These atrocities led the International Criminal Court to issue an arrest warrant for Putin in 2023 as a war criminal. Further, Trump called Ukrainian President Zelensky a dictator. That's not true either. Zelensky won 75% of the vote in free elections. In fact, his approval rating is higher than Trump's. In the midst of a brutal war, Ukraine's parliament continues to function and free and unfettered political debate takes place.
So I can't begin to count the number of lies that Bernie Sanders just told there in a row. That was like the perfect package of all of the propaganda talking points, including the bit that Ukraine's still a democracy. Zelensky's outlawed opposition parties. He's outlawed opposition media. He's outlawed the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. The list goes on, and I could go through and deconstruct everything he said there, but it's really a masterclass in really the propaganda and the tropes, the endless tropes that are being repeated right across the board.
Yeah.